Hi everybody, today I'm going to be answering your frequently asked questions about the Weston A. Price diet, and more specifically I'm going to be going over how to modify the Weston A. Price diet if you've got gut issues or metabolic issues, because that is what you guys wanted to know. That's what I got the most questions about. I also got a few questions about like practicality, what you can have, what you can't have on a Weston A. Price diet, and how to implement a few things, so I'll touch on that as well. If you want to skip ahead and just see the questions that you want to know the answers to, I'll leave the timestamps all below. But yeah, so these are going to be questions that I asked on my Facebook, Instagram, I asked here on YouTube. I'm going to be answering them. And I also went back to some of my previous videos where I talked about a Weston A. Price diet and saw what you guys were asking in the comments as well. So yeah, let's get into it. First, if you don't know what the Weston A. Price diet is, it is a diet that is based on how our ancestors ate. So Weston A. Price was a dentist, and in the early 1900s, he traveled around the world looking at people's diets. He looked at people that were still eating the way that their ancestors were. Most of these people lived in places that were isolated from more populous areas and therefore cut off from modern trade, and that is why they were still eating like their ancestors. And then he would find neighboring populations and see how they were eating. He compared what they ate, he compared their health. He found people eating the way our ancestors had for a long time had far superior health, and therefore he came up with different principles about what you should eat, how you should eat in order to be the healthiest possible. And now the Weston A. Price Foundation has taken his work and just brought it to a whole nother level and really made it accessible. If you want to learn more about what a Weston A. Price diet is, I will link a video up above and down below where I go over the 11 fundamental principles of a Weston A. Price diet. So if you don't know what it is, that's a better place to start than this video. In this video, I'm going to answer questions kind of assuming you know what a Weston A. Price diet is. Anyway, so the very first question I got was, how does it work for people who have frequent blood sugar crashes? So this is an excellent question. It works really, really well, because the main thing that's going to cause blood sugar crashes is having a blood sugar spike earlier on. So a lot of people get blood sugar spikes when they eat carbs or sugar. Carbs that break down to sugar quickly, or a lot of sugar on its own. So you might have heard the term naked carbs before. That is having carbs by themselves, having just a piece of toast, having just some crackers. That will cause a lot of blood sugar spikes. So there's a few things you can do to make this diet even better to avoid blood sugar crashes. But first, just recognize the main thing that's going to be causing your blood sugar crashes and when you previously had a blood sugar spike. And that's going to be caused from eating too much sugar or processed carbs that break down to sugar quickly, and having them on their own. So the Weston A. Price diet cuts out a lot of that stuff. You can still have some honey, you can still have properly prepared grains, so you can still have like sourdough bread, which to avoid blood sugar crashes, you don't want to have on its own. You would want to have that paired with protein and fat to stabilize your blood sugar levels. So it's going to cut out a lot of processed foods and sugars and crappy foods that would cause those blood sugar spikes to begin with. But you just have to be aware there are foods that are allowed on a Weston A. Price diet that could still cause a blood sugar spike if you're not careful. So if you are having, sourdough bread, if you're having honey, if you're having, some kind of sweet or something like that, or cracker that you made in a healthier way, you prepared properly, you want to have it with protein and fat. That will stabilize your blood sugar really well. And also another big thing here is you'll be cutting out seed oils on a Weston A. Price diet. And another thing that feeds into this blood sugar issue of spikes then crashes is your body not being able to tap into your stored fat to burn for fuel. You probably heard people talk about with keto a lot being fat adapted. But the thing is, you don't have to be on a keto diet in order to burn your fat for fuel. Normally, you will burn up any stored glycogen, so you'll use carbs for fuel first, and when you've burned through that, your body will switch over to burning your fat for fuel. So you should not get super hangry when you haven't eaten in a few hours. You shouldn't get starving if it's been 3 or 4 hours since you ate. If you're getting that way, it's a sign that you're not good at transitioning into burning your fat. So I bring this up because a lot of time a blood sugar crash comes with a feeling of hangriness and tiredness and things like that. So seed oils, when you eat them, will be stored in your fat, and your body will then not want to burn fat because it will release seed oils, which are inflammatory and not good for you. So over time, after you cut out seed oils, your body will slowly detox them and get rid of them. And once your fat doesn't contain those anymore, it'll be a much cleaner burning for your body. So you'll be able to switch into that fat burning easier. And that's another thing that will help. So when you run out of your stored glycogen, you run out of any sugars from meals that you just ate, then you can go into that fat burning mode and feel better, basically have more stable energy. So that will help as well. All right, so the second question that I got was, I am wondering about how it might work for people with POTS, so POTS, and food intolerances. Now, she specifically mentioned that her food intolerances were FODMAPs, histamines, gluten, and dairy. And she said, I've been debating between a Weston A price and an animal-based carnivore diet for quite a while. She feels like a Weston A price diet would be easier to implement, though. So there's a lot in that question, and I will get to all of it. Let's start with the food intolerances. So food intolerances are primarily caused by leaky gut. When you've got a leaky gut, you've got little chunks of food entering your bloodstream from your GI tract that wouldn't normally be able to get in there. Your body sees them as a foreign object, and your immune system starts to remember these to be able to mount immune responses quicker. So when you have these little chunks of food coming in regularly, your body gets really good at identifying them and mounting these immune responses, which are very inflammatory, very quickly. So you end up becoming sensitive to pretty much all the foods that you eat normally. The way to heal that is to seal and heal leaky gut. So a Weston A price diet is great for this, but you do need to go a little bit beyond. You can't just do a Weston A price diet. You have to be a little bit stricter than that. So let's see. Oh, before I get into that, if you want to learn more about healing leaky gut, I have a whole video that goes really in depth onto how to heal leaky gut, to heal your food intolerances. So I'll leave that link down below. And histamine is the same pathway. So if you are having leaky gut and you're having a lot of foods enter your bloodstream regularly and you're having these immune responses, part of the immune response is your body releasing a lot of histamine. So then you get excess histamine, and then when you have damage to your gut, your body isn't able to produce the enzymes like DAO that break down histamine and allow you to get rid of it. So you end up with a lot of excess histamine being produced, and your body not being able to break it down and get rid of it very well. So if you're having issues with histamine, you really have to seal leaky gut. You do also want to avoid high histamine foods for a little bit, but that's not a good long-term solution. You need to make sure you're focusing on healing and sealing leaky gut. So I just made a video that talks all about that, so I'll link that down below so you can dive more into histamine specifically. Okay, so for leaky gut, what you have to do with your Weston A price diet is you also have to cut out gluten, grains, and legumes, and that will help you a lot because those foods can really worsen and cause leaky gut. So on a Weston A price diet, normally gluten, grains, and legumes are allowed if you prepare them properly, so you ferment them, sprout them, soak them. But when you have leaky gut, I recommend getting rid of those foods completely for the time being. You really need to make sure you have lots and lots of meat stock. Now, for her specifically, you want meat stock because you have a histamine intolerance. So bone broth is going to be too high histamine, and it's going to cause a reaction for you, and it's not going to work very well. So you really want to start with meat stock first to seal your leaky gut. Now, if you don't have histamine intolerance, you can go ahead and do bone broth if you want. Bone broth is a little richer in collagen, so it can help you heal quicker if you're at a point to tolerate it. But if you're not at a point for tolerating it yet, it won't help quicker. You need to start with the meat stock. So that's going to be a really important component for healing and sealing leaky gut as well. Now, let's see. So she asked about like a Weston A price diet versus a more animal-based carnivore diet. So what I do with my clients is I have 3 different levels of diet. So the first level is just a Weston A price style diet, but I do have the majority of my clients cut out gluten as well, because most people with gut issues don't tolerate gluten very well, and they benefit a lot from just taking a little break from it and waiting to introduce sourdough till later. The second level I have is basically an animal-based diet. So that is the next more intense level, so kicking it up a notch. And that is basically an animal-based diet, which is basically a Weston A price diet, except no grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. So that is kind of the second tier I will take people on. You can also mess with how much properly prepared grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes that you are having, so you can kind of get closer to the level 1 or 2. And then the third level 3 diet that I will take my clients through is a GAPS introductory diet, which is a lot more restrictive, and it's a full-on elimination diet that starts you with a few foods and you're gradually adding more as you work through it. It is very beneficial for tricky cases though. So people, depending on your issues, depending on your preferences, those are the 3 I recommend. The stricter you go, the quicker that you'll heal, but I understand that a lot of people don't want to go as strict, and for them, if they can find something a little less restrictive, they can be more consistent with it, and therefore they'll heal quicker that way. So for the woman that asked this question, I would definitely cut out gluten, grains, and legumes. That is really important for sealing and healing leaky gut. So I would definitely do that. Aside from that, you can just follow a Weston A price diet if you want. If you're willing to do the animal-based route, you'll probably heal a little bit quicker. But at the same time, if you want to have a little bit of nuts and seeds here and there and you prepare them properly, that could be okay too. I personally did that middle ground to heal my chronic gut issues. So I did almost an animal-based diet, but I still had some like leafy greens and stuff here and there. And I also had the occasional nut, butter, or seeds, or toasted nuts on my salad, or corn tortillas. But other than that, no other grains and seeds, or grains and legumes. And no gluten as well for me personally. Anyway, so that's kind of the range of diets. And what I say is, start where you feel like you'll be the most consistent with it and what you feel like you can commit to. And if you're not seeing the progress that you want to, go a little bit stricter. Okay, so she also asked about POTS. So that's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. This is a disorder in which most of your blood stays in your lower body when you stand up, and in response, your heart rate jumps. So this is not a condition that I know a ton about, but I do really believe that your body is capable of healing a lot of things, and there's a lot of ways that eating in this way and healing your gut issues could help with blood circulation. So I don't have very much specifics for you there, but based on what you're asking about and what it seems like you're dealing with, I think really nailing your diet down, healing leaky gut so that you heal that histamine intolerance and those food sensitivities, I think that would likely help a lot with this. I see a lot of people heal their gut and see a lot of side benefits and heal a lot of kind of random conditions. So I do think that it would likely be very helpful for that too. All right, the third question I got is, what's the best proven diet for Crohn's? So very similar to what I was saying with leaky gut, you do want to go stricter than a Weston A price diet for Crohn's. I would cut out grains and legumes and gluten again. And nuts and seeds, if you can cut those out too, that'll be even better. So I would go more in the animal-based direction, or you could also do GAPS intro as well. And I'll link a video I have all about how to do GAPS intro down below too. So those would be better for Crohn's. You just need to be stricter because Crohn's is more severe. It often took years to develop your Crohn's, and those lesions are just very sensitive. You don't want to have any foods that are going to scrape against them. Crohn's is like having open wounds in your GI tract. And when you have like a scab or an open wound and you scratch it on accident, it hurts bad and it makes it a lot worse. So the same thing is happening inside you. You have to be really careful not to have foods that'll scratch at those lesions, or it'll take longer and longer to heal. Grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes are going to be the foods that are going to scratch at it, as well as like raw fibrous veggies are not going to be very good for that either, aside from just obviously cutting out, bread and processed foods and sugars and things like that too. So for Crohn's, I would go animal-based or GAPS Intro. I think both of those are great choices. And animal-based is really just Weston A. Price minus the grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. You're focusing on nose to tail animal foods. So eating the organs, eating bone broth or meat stock, having the muscle meat, having as many cuts as you can, having eggs, having dairy if you tolerate it, having fruits, having like roots and squashes are preferred on an animal-based diet because they have less anti-nutrients compared to like leafy greens, which you don't really want on that. I think a little leafy greens is going to be fine if you cook them, but don't go downing a bunch of kale salads and things like that. So a few kind of bonus tips for Crohn's is you really need lots of meat stock or bone broth to provide all that collagen to help heal those lesions. And you really need some fermented foods in there. So especially if you're dealing with diarrhea, go for some fermented dairy or raw dairy as you're able to tolerate it. If you can't tolerate dairy yet, start with fermented veggies. But as soon as you can tolerate a little raw butter, raw cheese, raw milk, raw kefir, those will help you a ton. All right, number 4 is, can this diet help with reversing insulin resistance? And more specifically, she says, I also suffer from that because of too many years of eating a diet high in processed carbs. So yes, eating a lot of processed carbs and sugars over the years is absolutely going to make you more prone to getting insulin resistance. And a Weston A. Price diet is going to be an awesome choice for you. So I want to mention a little bit about what causes insulin resistance in the first place so you can understand what's going on in your body and how to reverse it. So there's a lot of different metabolic syndromes and they're on kind of a spectrum. So first you're going to get insulin resistance, then you're going to get like pre-diabetes, and then you're going to get type 2 diabetes. So the earlier you stop it, the better, but you can reverse it at any point. So first of all, the main cause is excess sugar consumption. So when you eat excess sugar or foods that break down to sugar really easily, you're going to get a lot more insulin production by your pancreas. So insulin is like a key that lets you bring sugar and glucose into your cells. So it unlocks the little door, lets the sugar inside. Over time, your body can become desensitized to the effects of insulin and basically make the key not work anymore. So you get a lot of sugar that's hanging out in your bloodstream and unable to get into your cells. Thus, you get high blood sugar. And high blood sugar can cause a lot of damage in your body. So the Weston A. Price diet is great for this because it cuts back on sugar and it cuts out processed carbs that break down to sugar really quickly. Okay, just to put into perspective how common this is, insulin prevents your blood sugar from going above 100 milligrams per deciliter. So that's about a teaspoon of sugar in 1.5 gallons of blood, which is a pretty average amount for people to have. So if you have a teaspoon or a little over a teaspoon of sugar in your blood, your pancreas starts producing insulin to really get that into your cells and not let your blood sugar get too high, because like I said earlier, it's dangerous for your body and a lot of harm can happen when your blood sugar is too high. The average person consumes 31 teaspoons of sugar in a day. So that is really going to cause your pancreas to have to go on overdrive and just start kicking out the insulin. And then, like I said, over time, your body gets resistant to the effects of insulin. It stops working. You get high blood sugar. So a huge part of reversing this is you really have to cut out sugar and processed carbs. So I would take a few extra steps on top of the Weston A. Price diet. So I would keep your properly prepared grains and natural sweeteners like honey, maple syrup, dates really, really to a minimum. If you don't just cut them out at all, you've got to get your body a break from all of that sugar and insulin so that it can start to recover and regain insulin sensitivity, which is making those little keys work again. So you really do need to cut back on this. It's not the best time to be getting into sourdough. You can wait until you're more insulin sensitive again. You just really don't want to be having those foods a lot. Now, that's not to say you can't have carbs. You can still have carbs. It's just going to be a lot better if you prepare, or if you pick more complex carbs. And so that's just carbs that are a little harder to break down. Like, it takes longer to break them down. So like a whole wheat instead of a white flour, or just a lot of veggies are a little bit better for this as well. So if you pick your carbs from sources like that, it'll take longer. And if you pair your carbs with protein and fat, it'll just slow down the entire process of dealing with any sugars and glucose that's in your GI tract, and that slowing down will also help to improve your insulin sensitivity again. So big takeaways are, yes, Weston A. Price diet is excellent, but really cut out or minimize your properly prepared grains and natural sweeteners. Opt for more complex carbs. Always pair your carbs with fat and protein. Go a little higher on fat and protein right now, and with time your insulin sensitivity will come back, and eventually you'll be able to have, some sourdough bread or some homemade sourdough cookies, or, a little more honey on something, and be totally fine. Okay, number 5 is, do you have resources to give me meal ideas? I have a lot. So I will link down below. There'll be a big list of all the things I'm mentioning in this video. And some of the things I will include is my recipes. I have around 100 recipes on my website that are Weston A. Price diet friendly. So if you want direct recipes, you can go there. I also have a video where I show some Weston A. Price diet meal prep. So I show some of the foods that I'd prepared for that week to give you some ideas. And I have a grocery haul where I go over all the groceries that I bought for a week and all the meals, and there's pictures for all the meals too of what I ate in a week, so that can give you a lot of ideas. And then I have a lot of recipes linked in the description of that video as well. And I also share a lot of pictures of my meals on my Instagram and Facebook, so I'll have that link down below if you would like to check that out as well. So I've got a lot of resources for you there. Okay, number 6 is, do you know which grains Weston A. Price deems as okay? Millet, black rice. Also, if I were to bake, does incorn flour make the list? Or do they recommend cutting out all processed flours? Thanks again. How often would you say in moderation should be? Okay, so properly prepared grains are okay. So that means you have soaked, sprouted, or fermented. If you have plain bread that's not sourdough in the store, that's not okay. It hasn't been prepared properly. There's too many anti-nutrients in it. It's not good for you. But if you have a homemade sourdough or a sourdough that somebody else made that's really good, the fermentation process breaks down a lot of the anti-nutrients, makes it easier to digest, and better for you. If you just have rice that's cooked normally, that is not okay. If you have rice that you soaked in water with a little apple cider vinegar overnight, that's okay. If you have just oatmeal cooked, that's not okay. If you have oatmeal that you soaked overnight, and I don't add something just because I don't want it to alter the taste, but you can add like a little bit of whey or apple cider vinegar or lemon to break it down a little further. But yeah, soaking that overnight. If you buy sprouted oats instead, that would be another good option. So just any grains that are sprouted, soaked, or fermented are okay. Now, if you do get like ancient grains, that's a lot better. So you mentioned einkorn, that is way better than other wheats because it's an ancient grain. So that is absolutely better. Also note that Weston A. Price, when he went to the Swiss Alps, he found people that were eating a lot of rye bread, but it was rye that they grew and then made sourdough bread out of themselves, so they were preparing it properly. Let's see, millet, black rice, einkorn, yeah, those are all fine as as long as you prepare them properly. And for moderation, I had mentioned before, just you don't want to be having these foods all the time. They can be really yummy and they can add more variety into your diet. They can make really awesome dishes and they can be really special in that kind of way, but they are not where you're getting your nutrients. You are not getting much nutrients at all out of grains, and therefore you don't want huge portions of your diet to be grains because it's going to misplace the more nutritious foods. Like you might have less meat if you're having more grains. So moderation, I say no more than 2 to 3 high anti-nutrient foods a day. So nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes. Again, you do want them prepared properly. So this could look like you have oatmeal for breakfast that has some toasted nuts on it, and you soaked your oats overnight. So you got 2 right there. You got the oatmeal and the nuts, and just like some sausage on the side, so you have enough protein there. And then for lunch, maybe you just have steak and mashed potatoes and some mozzarella and fermented veggies and liver pate and cod liver oil and bone broth. You can tell what I like to eat. So there's no anti-nutrient sources there. And then dinner, maybe you have some ground beef fried rice. So the rice was soaked overnight in water and apple cider vinegar, so it's prepared properly. That's your third source. So you don't really want to be pushing much higher than that, or it's going to displace a lot. It also depends where you're at in your healing journey. A lot of earlier questions I was telling you, like if you've got leaky gut, if you've got Crohn's disease, if you've got an autoimmune disease, like this is not going to be a good option. You just want to cut those out completely. But if you don't have as severe issues and you can tolerate some, I would say I would aim not to have more than 2 to 3 in a day. Okay, 7th question is peanut oil okay? No, peanut oil is not going to be a good option. It is still a seed oil. So when you think of seed oils, think about the seed of the plant. So the seed is the nuts, the grains, legumes, and seeds. So those are all seed oils. So peanuts are technically a legume, and the legume is the seed of the plant. So it's still a seed oil. It's still going to be inflammatory. It's going to be the same as the other seed oil. So you do want to cut out peanut oil. And then instead, some fats that you can eat are butter, ghee, lard, tallow, any kind of animal fat is going to be a really great option. Those are what I recommend. The only other one I'll use coconut oil on occasion for very specific things like a Thai curry. And I will use olive oil in like salad dressings as well. But yeah, mostly stick with the animal fats are going to be the best for you. Okay, question number 8 is this a paleo diet? No, it is not a paleo diet. It shares a lot of similarities, but a paleo diet has no dairy, no grains, and no legumes. So it is a little bit different. Weston A diet is okay with grains and legumes as long as they're properly prepared, and is very highly in favor of good quality raw dairy. It is very nourishing to your body and very healing. And then also a Weston A diet focuses more on making sure you're getting nose to tail animal foods in, making sure you're getting fermented foods in, and really prioritizing those most nutrient dense foods, liver, salmon roe, raw milk, those kinds of foods. Also, paleo diet is a little more focused specifically on Paleolithic people, where a Weston A diet is focused more on the commonalities between a bunch of different diets from our ancestors that were very, very healthy. So we want to make sure we're looking at people who had really good health, what their diet was. So those are the main differences. I like a Weston A diet better, mostly because of the introduction of quality dairy. I think dairy is very, very nourishing and can be really, really helpful for a lot of people. A lot of people will see great results from adding like raw kefir or yogurt into their diet. Okay, number 9 is what is the ratio of water and apple cider vinegar to rice when soaking the rice overnight? So when I soak rice, I do 2 cups of dry rice. I put it in a Tupperware that I have. I cover it with filtered water by at least a centimeter just so it's all fully submerged. And then I add about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Personally, I just eyeball it now, but for recipe testing's sake, I have measured it several times to make sure that that is a good amount. So don't overthink it. You don't want a ton of apple cider vinegar, but yeah, those are my recommendations. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like more help narrowing down a diet that will work well for you and healing chronic gut issues, then you might be interested in my program, Ancestral Gut Healing. This program is designed to help you heal your chronic gut issues at the root and get to a place where you're symptom-free and pain-free as soon as possible. In the program, you get a proven roadmap to help you heal your gut microbiome, gut lining, and entire GI tract at the root. You also get a personalized strategy and action plan that I create specifically for you to heal your exact gut issues. I will also help you to pinpoint the weak spots in your digestive system, strengthen them, and get your entire digestive system working like a reliable machine. You will also learn what to eat and what not to eat depending on what stage of healing you're in and the exact gut issues that you have. I will also help you to identify the root causes of all your symptoms and teach you step by step how to heal every single one of them. I will also help you to eliminate chronic inflammation from your gut and stop all food intolerances by healing leaky gut. And I will help you to have healthy stools effortlessly and daily, whether you're starting with constipation or diarrhea. And I'll help you to identify those missing gaps in your current health routine and to fill in those gaps so you can heal as quickly as possible. So if you want to learn more about ancestral gut healing and how I can help you to heal your gut issues, I will leave a link below where you can book a call with me. And this is just a free call to get to know each other a little bit better. I can share more about what I offer. You can share more about what you're wanting to achieve. And yeah, I can tell you more about it. And if you want to join, you're welcome to join on the call. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave that link down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to learn more about the Weston A. Price diet, I will link a video on the screen in a second here that goes over the 11 main principles of a Weston A. Price diet. Thank you so much for watching.